Ladies, I want you to take a breath, because what I'm about to say may shake something deep inside you. Most women over 50 are giving away their power in the bedroom without even realizing it, not because they are weak, not because they are insecure, and certainly not because age has taken anything from them, but because they have been conditioned for decades to stay quiet, to prioritize someone else's comfort, and to shrink the moment intimacy begins. And the heartbreaking truth is this: many women are doing things in bed for a man that they should never do. Not at 50, not at 20, not ever. They do it because they believe it is the price of love. They do it because they fear being rejected. They do it because they think putting themselves last is what a good woman does. I want you to hear me clearly. That is not love. That is survival. Hello, I'm Dr. Lisa Perriera, a board-certified gynecologist with more than 30 years caring for women through every chapter of life: motherhood, menopause, heartbreak, rediscovery, and the quiet rebuilding of identity that often begins after 50. I have sat with women who felt invisible, ashamed of their changing bodies, afraid to speak up, afraid to say no, afraid to ask for what they need. Women who carried decades of silence inside them, like a weight they could not put down. And I am here today to give you something many women have never been given: permission. Permission to reclaim your body. Permission to reclaim your voice. Permission to take back your emotional and physical power. Permission to step into intimacy not as someone who must earn love, but as someone who deserves it. Here is the paradox no one teaches us. The more you sacrifice yourself in the bedroom, the less connection you actually create. The harder you try to please him, the further you drift from yourself. And the moment you put his needs above your own, the relationship slowly begins to erode, not because he is unkind, but because intimacy built on silence cannot survive. Today, I'm going to walk you through the 5 things you should never do for a man in bed after 50. Not because you should withhold love, not because you should be guarded or distant, but because every single one of these behaviors steals a piece of your confidence, your self-worth, your emotional power, and your ability to receive real connection. And when you stop doing them, you will not only transform your intimacy, you will transform your life. But before we go deeper, I want you to pause for a moment. Think about the last time you stayed silent in the bedroom. Think about the last moment you pushed through discomfort because you felt you had to. Think about the last time you pretended something felt good when it didn't. Think about the last time you apologized for your body or your needs. If even one memory rises up inside you, then this conversation is for you. You are not alone. Millions of women around the world carry the same silence. But today, that silence ends. Because the very first mistake women make in the bedroom after 50 is also the one that causes the deepest emotional harm. And once you understand it, something inside you will shift in a way that you cannot unsee. Before I continue, I want to ask you something that means more to me than you know. Tell me in the comments where you are watching from. Which city or state in the United States, or which country around the world, women from every corner of the globe share these conversations, and your presence helps others feel stronger, safer, and less alone. And if this message already resonates with you, type 1 in the comments. If it doesn't, type 0 and tell me how I can support you better. Now take a deep breath. Because we are about to step into the very first and most damaging behavior many women do for a man in bed, often without realizing it. A behavior that erodes self-worth, weakens confidence, and turns intimacy into obligation. And it begins with one of the most powerful words you will ever learn to say no. Are you ready? Let's begin. The first thing you must never do for a man in bed after 50 is something almost every woman has done at least once in her life, sacrificing her comfort or boundaries just to keep the peace. This is the quiet pattern that has broken more hearts, drained more confidence, and dimmed more desire than almost anything else I see in my practice. I cannot tell you how many women over 50 have sat across from me, eyes lowered, voice trembling, confessing in a whisper that they went along with something they did not truly want. Not because it felt good, not because it felt right, but because they were afraid of disappointing a man, afraid of rejection, afraid of being seen as difficult or unlovable. These are strong women. Women who raised families, survived loss, battled illness, worked tirelessly, loved deeply, gave endlessly. Women who carried entire households on their backs. Yet the moment intimacy begins, they shrink. They fold themselves into silence. They disappear inside their own bodies. Not because they are weak, but because they were conditioned to believe that a woman's comfort is less important than a man's satisfaction. They were taught directly or indirectly that saying no is selfish, that asking for what they need is demanding, that slowing down is inconvenient, that their body is something to manage rather than something to honor. And when I look into their eyes, I always see the same thing, a quiet grief. The grief of self-abandonment. The grief of betraying their own body in the name of love. I want you to hear this with your whole heart. Intimacy without safety is not intimacy. Pleasure without consent is not pleasure. And saying yes when your body is screaming no is not an act of love for someone else. It is an act of harm to yourself. When you push through dryness, discomfort, emotional disconnection, or pain just to make someone else comfortable, you send a message to your nervous system that your needs do not matter. And the body remembers. It remembers every time you forced it. It remembers every time you silenced it. It remembers every moment you chose someone else over your own well-being. Over time, your desire fades. Your confidence fades. Your connection to your own body fades. Intimacy stops being something you share. It becomes something you endure. Real intimacy is built on honesty, slowness, communication, and mutual presence. The right man does not want your compliance. He wants your truth. He wants your desire. He wants you fully present, not quietly disappearing. I want you to imagine a different moment. Imagine looking him in the eyes and saying, "I need to go slower." Imagine saying, "I'm not ready yet." Imagine saying, "I need more connection first," or "I need gentler touch tonight." Imagine your voice not shaking. Imagine not apologizing. Imagine not shrinking, and now imagine his reaction. The right man will soften. He will listen. He will adjust. He will honor your words because he honors you. He will see your honesty as an invitation, not a rejection. He will recognize that connection thrives when both bodies feel safe, not when one body goes silent. Because here is the truth that many women forget: a man who walks away because you said no is not a loss. He is a redirect. He is the closed door, preventing you from wasting your heart on someone who cannot love you well. Your boundaries do not push love away. They guide love to the right place. So ask yourself gently, when was the last time I listened to my body instead of overriding it? When was the last time I honored my boundaries instead of abandoning them? If that moment feels far away, or if you cannot remember it at all, then I want you to stay with me. Because the next mistake women over 50 make in the bedroom is something almost every woman has done, and its impact is far more damaging than most people ever realize. It is the behavior that erases desire, destroys emotional intimacy, and slowly disconnects you from yourself. And once you see the truth of it, everything begins to change. Are you ready? Let's go deeper. The second thing you must never do for a man in bed after 50 is something almost every woman has done at least once in her life: pretending or faking pleasure. And I want to speak about this with compassion, not shame, Because the women who do this are not weak. They are exhausted. They are afraid. They are carrying a lifetime of messages that taught them to protect everyone's feelings except their own. I cannot count the number of women who have sat across from me, eyes filling with tears, confessing that they have faked pleasure for years. Some began doing it in their 30s, others after menopause. Many cannot even remember the last time they were fully present in their own body. They whisper things like, "It was easier to pretend. I didn't want him to feel bad. I didn't want to ruin the moment." But here is the truth. I need you to hold, gently but firmly, every time you fake pleasure, a piece of your connection to your own body fades. You teach yourself that honesty is dangerous. You teach your nervous system that discomfort must be hidden. And you teach your partner a script that will never lead to real intimacy. Pretending does not protect a relationship. It starves it. Because intimacy built on illusion cannot grow. It can only drift slowly, quietly over time. When a woman fakes pleasure, she disconnects from herself. She loses touch with her real desires, her real rhythm, her real needs. Over months or years, she may begin to believe that pleasure is no longer possible, that her body has changed beyond repair, or that sex is something she must tolerate instead of experience. I see this heartbreak in their faces every time. But here is what women rarely understand: men are not fragile. Men are lost without honesty. They are trying to love you with the wrong map. They are trying to please you using signals you give them out of fear, not truth. And the longer you pretend, the deeper the disconnect becomes. You deserve more than a performance. You deserve presence. You deserve to say, "Could we slow down for a moment? Could you touch me like this instead? I need more time before I can feel aroused." You deserve to express your needs without apologizing, softening, or shrinking. The woman who speaks honestly is not selfish. She is courageous. She is present. She is inviting her partner into something real, and the right man will not be threatened by your truth. He will be relieved. He will be grateful. He will feel honored that you trusted him enough to let him see what is real. Because men want direction. They want clarity. They want to know how to love you better. And when you pretend, you deny both of you that possibility. I want you to imagine a different moment. Imagine whispering, "I want something different tonight." Imagine saying, "I need more connection first." Imagine guiding his hand gently. Imagine letting your voice be steady instead of silent. And now imagine his reaction. A man who loves you will not shut down. He will not be angry. He will lean in. He will listen. He will learn. He will grow with you. Because intimacy is not about being perfect. It is about being present. It is about two adults learning each other again and again in every season of life. And after 50, your body changes. His body changes. This is not a failure. It is a new chapter that requires honesty instead of performance, slowness instead of urgency, tenderness instead of pressure. If part of you feels afraid at the thought of speaking up, that tells me something important: you have carried silence for too long. And silence is the enemy of intimacy. Silence disconnects. Silence suffocates desire. Silence turns closeness into distance. But honesty, spoken gently and confidently, is the beginning of real connection. It breathes life back into the bedroom. It rebuilds trust. It gives both partners the chance to rediscover pleasure in a way that feels safe, authentic, and deeply satisfying. So ask yourself, when was the last time I let myself feel instead of perform? When was the last time I communicated what I needed without fear? When was the last time I allowed pleasure to be real? If the answer is, "I cannot remember," then stay with me. Because the next mistake women make in intimacy after 50 is one of the most deeply ingrained patterns of all. It is a behavior that destroys attraction slowly and silently, even when both partners mean well. And once you understand it, everything about the way you see intimacy will begin to shift. Are you ready? Let's move to the next truth. The third thing you must never do for a man in bed after 50 is something so deeply conditioned into women that many do it without even realizing, making his needs more important than your own. And this pattern, as quiet as it seems, is one of the biggest reasons intimacy fades, resentment grows, and emotional distance widens with time. Women over 50 are some of the strongest human beings I know. They have built families, carried responsibilities, survived losses, healed from heartbreaks, overcome illnesses, and held worlds together. Yet when it comes to intimacy, many women shrink. They default to giving. They default to pleasing. They default to prioritizing someone else's experience while ignoring their own. Not because they lack wisdom, but because they were raised in a world that rewarded self-sacrifice and punished women for having needs. I cannot tell you how many women have sat in my office, hands folded nervously, whispering things like, "I just want him to be happy," or "It's easier to focus on him," or "I don't want to make things complicated." Beneath these words is not selfishness, it is survival. A lifetime of being taught that a good partner should make herself small. But here is the truth. Many women never hear. Intimacy is not a one-way street. It is not a performance. It is not a service. It is not an exchange where his satisfaction automatically means success. Real intimacy is partnership. It requires two people meeting each other emotionally, physically, and energetically. When one gives everything and the other receives without understanding, the imbalance connection deteriorates. When you consistently prioritize his needs over your own, something inside you begins to shift. At first, it may feel easier. It may feel like harmony. It may feel like you are keeping the relationship peaceful. But over time, a quiet exhaustion grows. A quiet resentment grows. A quiet loneliness grows. Because no matter how kind you are, your body remembers. It remembers every moment you put yourself last. It remembers every time you swallowed your discomfort. It remembers every time you suppressed your desire. The body stores this as emotional fatigue, and intimacy begins to feel like a task instead of a connection. And something else happens too, something most women do not expect. When you overgive, he stops showing up. Not because he dislikes you, but because he no longer feels needed, useful, or able to contribute. Men bond through contribution. They bond through feeling that their presence matters. When you do everything, when you erase your needs, when you make it too easy, he loses opportunities to connect with you. What begins as generosity becomes imbalance. What begins as love becomes emotional depletion. What begins as effort becomes loneliness. I want you to hear this clearly. Your needs are not a burden. Your needs are not an inconvenience. Your needs are not too much. When you speak them, you invite a man into deeper connection. When you silence them, you carry the weight of the entire relationship alone, and the right man does not want that for you. The right man wants to participate. He wants to learn you. He wants to contribute to your happiness. He wants to know what makes you feel loved, safe, relaxed, and connected. When you give him nothing to respond to, intimacy becomes empty. Imagine a different moment. Imagine letting yourself receive without guilt. Imagine saying, "I need more time tonight." Imagine saying, "Could we slow down?" Imagine saying, "This is what helps my body feel open." Imagine believing that your needs are equal, not secondary. The man who loves you will not be offended. He will feel honored, because it means you trust him enough to be real. And I want you to ask yourself something gently, without judgment. When was the last time I let someone care for me instead of doing all the caring? When was the last time I allowed myself to be met halfway? When was the last time I gave myself permission to receive? If those moments feel rare or distant, do not feel ashamed. Feel aware, because awareness is the beginning of transformation. And what comes next is the peace almost every woman struggles with, even the strongest among us, finding the courage to speak up about what you need. This next pattern is one of the most damaging to emotional intimacy, and it is something generations of women have been taught to feel ashamed of. But once you understand it, it changes everything about how you communicate, how you connect, and how you love. Are you ready? Let's keep going. The fourth thing you must never do for a man in bed after 50 is the one that almost every woman struggles with. Even the strongest, most self-aware, most emotionally mature women I know, silencing yourself. Staying quiet about what you want. Quiet about what you need. Quiet about what feels good and what does not. Quiet about the pace, the rhythm, the connection your body is asking for. For decades, women were told to be accommodating, to be grateful, to be pleasant, to be easy. Many grew up hearing messages like, "Don't be demanding," or "Don't make a fuss," or "A good woman doesn't ask for too much." These beliefs burrow into the nervous system so deeply that when a woman reaches midlife, she may not even realize she is carrying them. But here is the truth. Silence is the enemy of intimacy. When you silence your needs, your desire goes silent too. When you silence your voice, your body begins to detach. When you pretend everything is fine, resentment replaces connection. What starts as politeness becomes a barrier. What starts as accommodation becomes emotional distance. And what starts as fear of speaking up becomes a fear of being seen at all. I have had women sit across from me in their 50s, 60s, even late 70s, saying in a whisper, "I don't know how to ask for what I want," or "I don't even know what I want anymore." These are not failures. These are wounds left by decades of placing everyone else's needs above your own. And healing begins not with perfection, but with voice. You deserve to say, "I need you to slow down." You deserve to say, "This touch doesn't feel good." You deserve to say, "I need more time to feel aroused." You deserve to say, "Can we try something different?" Your voice is not an interruption. It is an invitation. When you speak, you open the door to real connection. You give your partner the chance to love you better. You create emotional presence instead of emotional guessing. And the right man will not be threatened by your truth. He will be relieved by it. Because men cannot read minds. They want clarity. They want direction. They want to know how to bring you pleasure, how to build closeness, how to be part of an intimate experience that feels shared rather than one-sided. Speaking up is not criticism. It is connection. And now we arrive at the fifth and final thing you must never do for a man in bed after 50, believing that you are the problem. This is the heaviest burden women carry, and it breaks my heart every time I hear it. When intimacy changes, when desire shifts, when the body becomes slower, more sensitive, or more emotionally complex. The first place most women look is inward. They blame themselves. They say, "Maybe I'm not attractive anymore," or "Maybe he's losing interest because I'm older," or "Something must be wrong with my body." But intimacy changes for both partners as we age. Men struggle too. They face performance pressure, emotional withdrawal, erectile changes, hormone decline, fear of failure. Yet somehow, women carry the responsibility for both people. They hold the guilt. They hold the shame. They hold the fear. Let me tell you this clearly, you are not broken. You are not the cause of problems in the bedroom. You are not losing value. You are entering a new season, one that can be deeper, slower, more emotional, and more meaningful than anything you experienced in your earlier years. Real intimacy after 50 is not about performance. It is about presence. It is not about chasing an old version of yourself. It is about honoring who you are now in this moment. And the right man, the loving man, the emotionally mature man will want to walk beside you through every change, not stand on the outside, judging you for them. So ask yourself this: what if nothing is wrong with me at all? What if this is the moment I begin choosing myself instead of abandoning myself? What if intimacy after 50 is not the end, but the beginning of the most honest, most connected, most empowered chapter of my life? Because that is the truth I want you to leave with. You do not need to shrink. You do not need to perform. You do not need to silence yourself. You are worthy of pleasure connection and emotional safety at every age. And when you honor yourself, you invite a partner to rise to that level with you. Before we close, tell me in the comments where you are watching from. Which state in the United States or which country around the world? Women everywhere are reclaiming their voice, and your story will help another woman feel less alone. And now, as always, let me leave you with this. And before we close, let me remind you, this video is for educational purposes only. It does not replace medical advice. Every woman's body is unique. If you are experiencing pain, significant changes, or have personal concerns, please consult with your healthcare provider. Your well-being deserves personalized care.